Hey, what's going on, family? Welcome to another episode of Call to Serve podcast. I am your host, Reggie Hubbard. If you haven't got a chance to, please subscribe, comment, and share our page and all that jazz. It's super important for the mission of helping us serve others. Today, I have a very, very special guest with us via internet, actually. He served 26 years in the Navy, is an entrepreneur, but also what's really cool is he is an international best-selling author. So without further ado, Mr. Enrique Acosta Gonzalez.
Hey,
Welcome, Enrique.
Reggie, good to be with you, brother, and share this time. Excited about the conversation.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I remember reading your bio, and someone from my team sent that over, actually, because we screen all of our guests before they come on the show. We just want to make sure that they align with our vision and what we're trying to accomplish. So nothing personal, but I remember just
Practice.
kind of looking over your stuff, and I was like, "Oh man, that sounds really cool." I really want to pick his brain a little bit. So thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come on the show. We really appreciate you showing up.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad you got me on the podcast because it costs to pick my brain.
Well, shoot. Woo! I hear that. I ain't even mad at you on that one, brother. Well, so let's just start by just giving us a brief background of who you are, your story. What kind of led you to the point to where you are today?
Yeah, so real, cliff notes kind of way. Born in Puerto Rico, raised in the Bronx, went back to Puerto Rico, graduated high school, and the Navy said, "Come on, 18-year-old, let's take you around the world." And so they did, to a tune of 26 years, right? So I joined what we call the meteorology and oceanography community. So I
Mm-hmm.
was a weatherman and oceanographer for 26 years. Decided to that my tenure with the Navy was up after 26 years, and decided, hey, let's go to Orlando and let my boys enjoy the parks for a while they're still young. And here we are. I started Triad Leadership Solutions as my main company, and have little arms, right? The podcast, developing the leader within podcast is a branch of it, and then some nonprofit work and mentoring, right? Mentoring is what I do here locally, and that's where we are today.
Wow. So it sounds like you've got a pretty interesting story. I look forward to getting into that. So I guess I'll start with, because I have some questions for you, if that's
Yeah,
okay with you.
yeah.
So the first question is, what inspired you to serve in the Navy, and what kept you going for 26 years? That's a long time.
Yeah, it is. Now, so originally, it wasn't the Navy that I had chosen. I had chosen the Air Force, but they have this test that you have to take, and unfortunately, I didn't meet the quota for them. And the Navy said, you know what? That's their loss. Come on over here. We'll take care of you. And sure they did for 26 years. So, what inspired me to serve? I think I come from in the Hispanic community, service is big, right? So, we try to be of service, and that's kind of our DNA. You will find very little folks that are not brought up in a service type of mentality in the Hispanic community. So originally, mom, hey, go help this person. Hey, go do this and help out and help out and help out. And in school, I was in what they call Air Force Junior ROTC, ROTC for most people that know it.
Hmm.
And there you are developed as a young man, young girl to learn the language of service because it is a language, it is a community, it is a lifestyle. And so from then on, the military piece, I already knew I was going to do. The Navy just were the benefactor of my service, and they treated me well. 26 years. When you're having fun, it goes by so fast. And so I think that's what attributed to being so long. They actually had to send me home before I ever hung it up. But 30 years is the max you could do normally. And so I got close.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a long time, man. That's a lifetime.
It is.
What was that? like transitioning
Yeah, I'm
out
still
of the military?
transitioning, brother. That I'll tell you, and most people can attest that are going from military service to civilian work or civilian world. It is a daily transition, but it's not foreign to whatever anyone goes through, right? You go from one job to another, you're transitioning. You move from one block to the other, you're transitioning. Yeah, it's transition is not such a big deep thing. It does affect that period of transition does affect people differently, and so I'm still going through the 26 years of service to what I'm doing now, but actually I found out that they complement each other pretty well. So what I've learned in the military transitioned pretty well to what I do now in civilian world, and yeah, it's been good.
Wow. That's a good way to look at it. That I think a lot of the times, and like I said, I've been there too. Transitioning from the military it's kind of made to be like its own thing, which it
Mhm.
is, right? Not to take away from the service,
Right.
but there are a lot of similarities in the military world than there are in the civilian world. And I think a lot of times maybe we focus on the differences, and that's where we get our perspective. So
Right.
yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Good deal.
Next question: How do your military principles influence the way that you run your business today?
Yeah, well, they're part of my DNA. You can't take a 18-year-old kid and indoctrinate them, right? Because that's what happens, into a lifestyle and a way of thinking and it not be, right? So, what I learned in the military, those core values, honor, courage, commitment for the Navy, and a whole lot of other things that you learn, right? Loyalty and being resilient and things like that. They just carry over to everything that you do. For instance, your message to me was like, "Hey, be 10 minutes early." Well, guess who was in here 10 minutes early waiting, right? So it's one of those things, be where you're supposed to be at the time you're supposed to be there and ready to roll. Those type of things have actually been a benefit out here in the world because you don't find that type of dedication, that type of preemptive type of things that you do in order to be that person that stands out. A lot of folks say, "Oh man, how you get promoted so fast?" Yo, man, I did what I had to do to stand out. And for us military people, it's not that hard, right? You show up
Yeah,
to work 15 minutes early, your boss is like, "Yo, I like that guy." That's standard practice, standard operating procedure for the military.
100.
And so that's where you have to see all the things that you learn and how you're gonna put that and implement it in your life on a day to day, and you'll see a lot of fruit come from what the military taught, that the world doesn't teach.
Yeah, that's real. I mean, I just think about the things that we acquire in the military
Mhm.
and the whole process. I mean, you're going from being a civilian, and there's a transformation. You have to go through a transformation process to become something more or different, so to speak, different, but something that is on a different level. And I think military, we are people. You know what I mean? We're men. A lot of the times we just do things at a higher level or at a more focused level, at a more intentional level, because that's kind of how we have to think. That's how we have to be in order to execute and get and accomplish the mission. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's a calling, right? You answer the call, right? They say, "Hey, can you bear arms?" Yeah, I can bear arms. "Hey, could you take a hill?" Yeah, we can take a hill. "Can you lob some missiles across the horizon?" Yes, we can. It's just a call, and a lot, a person working in a at a grocery store. "Can you stack fruit?" Yes, I can. Yeah, it's just a calling. We chose to answer the call and serve.
Yeah. I love that perspective, man. You don't really hear a lot of people put it the way that you do. And like I said, man, you got almost 30 years of military experience. I mean, I came on this call. I'm like, man, I wonder what nuggets I can get from this dude, man. Because I served for 14 years. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that seemed like a lifetime. But 26, oh, Lord, I don't know if I had that in me.
Well, we serve what we're capable of serving. And
Yes,
there's no so the folks that be like, "Yeah, I only did 2 years." I was like, "What? Only? No, you took
you
2
did two
years out of
years.
your life and you separated yourself
Wow.
and you allowed the world to go on without you. That's a
Mm.
lot, man."
Ooh, man, that is deep. Come on, brother, man. Come on. Hey, I love that.
Yeah,
My man said you took 2 years out of your life and you let the world go on without you. Wow,
I always
that
tell
is true.
folks that we uh, w- we represent 1% of our complete number in the United States, right? So the
Yes.
military is 1%. And we are the 1% that the 99% learn to live without. And so no wonder transition is hard. People learn to live without us. And so when we come out and we're like, "Hey, here I am." They're like, "Who are you?" But
Wow.
it is that impactful.
Yeah, I definitely agree, man. I definitely agree. Thanks for sharing that, man. I'm already blessed, man. Just you know, I'm already getting nuggets, man. And we haven't been talking that long, man. Yeah. So
Uh,
let's talk about all right. So let's talk about business, right?
yeah.
I know you have a plethora of things that you're doing. Why don't you just kind of explain to us what your company or your main company is all about and how it essentially serves others.
Yeah, well, Triad Leadership Solutions came and was birthed from my military service. Most people that understand the uniform makeup, right, we'll call this a cookie, right? We in the military, at least in the Navy, we call it a cookie because it looked like a cookie. But it is one of the badges that you put on you got the Joint Chief badge, you got the Career Counselor badge, you got your BNOC badges, and you got your
Hmm.
active in war badge. Everything is a badge. Everything is a cookie. And so when I was getting ready to transition out, I had spent at least 12 years in the senior enlisted ranks. Those years were probably the most fruitful because I got to see the impact of leadership on the junior sailors, junior airmen, junior servicemen. And I said, you know what? I love the premise around the triad. The triad is in the Navy is the commanding officer, the executive officer, and the senior enlisted leader. And those three basically are the heart or the brains of the commands. And then you have your service members and the civilians, because we have them, are the heart and soul and bloodline to everything that we do. But that triadic composition with the leaders is very good because the commanding officer always get the perspective of the officers and the enlisted every time they meet together, and no one gets left behind in the conversation, right? So they always talk about have somebody in the room talking about you, right? That's what I represented for the enlisted force. And so I always liked that. So I took triad right out of the Navy and I put it as the first word in my company. Also, I am a faith background. So, Father, Son, Holy Ghost, triad. I
Mm,
also said, okay, I could combine both of those worlds into
I love
this one.
that.
And so that's how I did it. But Triad Leadership Solutions provides leadership consulting to either companies or individuals. There are folks that want to become a better leader, but don't want necessarily everybody to know that they're getting some side help, right? So I provide that. I provide an avenue where they can just go ahead and book a call. We'll talk about whatever it is that's their hindrance or they're thinking about, and then they're off their way and continue. Now I've had some clients that have stayed with me over the years. I've had some clients that were ready to, move on out 3 months later, or even right after that one call. That's all they needed. All right, go on and be prosperous. So
Yeah.
that's what we do. We train, we coach, and we speak. Oh, so I speak in different forums and different platforms on leadership and the things that make a great leader.
Wow. I love that. We need more, and I don't mean this in any way, right? More men of color who are stepping up and getting into this space, leadership,
Absolutely.
and building up other leaders. Not that they're not out there, and this is not, like I said, this is not a like a racial thing or anything like that. But I just what I see.
Yeah,
We don't.
representation, right?
Yeah.
And we have great leaders out there of many colors, right? There's so many colors,
Yeah.
but and they are not represented. So yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. 100%. Now, so you're also an award-winning podcaster. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, pandemic hit everybody all at the same time, right? So, and it's crazy because we say pandemic so many years ago, right? And so I decided that at that time I was gonna walk away from my job, and it was February. And I remember like it was yesterday, 'cause I was like, "Ma, I gotta get this up. This thing ain't working for me over here." She's like, "Come on home." I like, "Bet, let's go." I got home, and then the next day it was like, "The world is shutting down." Every Everybody close your doors. Don't hire nobody. I was like, "Oh, there you go."
Don't breathe.
So I was out of a job because I walked off, and I'm like, "Well, what you gonna do now, brother?" And I said, "Well, I cannot sit on my knowledge. If I'm not practicing it by doing it, then I'm going to practice it by telling it." And so that's how the podcast came about. I said, "You know what? I'm going to get on here. I'm not shy to talk. Let me get on here, do some videos, get on a podcast, and share what it takes to be a good leader," because I had been plagued with plenty of examples of what it took to not be one. And so that's how it came out. And talking to my wife, she was like, "Hey, why don't you just call it Developing the Leader Within?" In homage to John Maxwell, which is, my mentor. And so that's how that came about. But you never know when you go down these roads of experimenting with life and the opportunities that are there, where it's going to lead you. And so that first year, I had just started. I mean, I didn't even have a year in. There was a military event, and they were asking for submissions for folks that were in the media space. And I'm like, "Hey, I'm in the media space. Let me put this podcast in there, see where it comes." And lo and behold, and I'm looking at the award on the wall right now, Media Professional of the Year for the podcast. And I'm like,
Let's
"Get
go.
out of Dodge, man."
I love
And
that.
I keep developing and keep, enlarging the podcast and doing things like that. And here, this last, I would say, March, I get the top 50 over 50 podcast award, right? Because I'm over 50. And Mel Robbins was number one, and I was number three. So
Come, come on.
you never ever know where this thing's gonna lead you, man. And just here this last week, there was an event in Palisades, California, the first ever veteran military entertainment awards ever.
Hmm.
And I'm talking about, there are stars there are politicians there. This is like the Oscars for military veteran podcasters or folks that do media, like movies, things like that. And hey, man, I throw my podcast in there. They see, and there wasn't a category to and enough participants in the podcasting to award an award, but I ended up being on the special mention right up on the big stage with everybody else, And so just go for it, man. Just, that don't sit back and sit on what you can do. Do it and see where it
Yeah,
takes you.
I love that. Now, talking about podcasts, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
What do you think makes a podcast truly impactful in today's world?
You have to know who you're speaking to, right? Everybody has a story. Everybody has a content they want to talk about. Everybody has. If you don't know who you're speaking to, you're not going to impact anything because you're
Mm.
probably talking to the wrong audience. Have you ever been to a zoo and then there was a circus? You're going to be like, what the is going on here? As podcasters, where you make your impact is when you connect with the people that want to hear you. And so if there's anything, that I would encourage podcasters to do, is not to just record and shoot out, shoot it out to the people that are interested, and you'll see a lot of impact.
Yeah, I like that. I think definitely knowing your target audience is key, because the reality is that all of us, we're not going to reach everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone's not going to resonate with our message. So when I'm speaking, doesn't matter how many people are in a room or in the arena or whatever. When I'm crafting a message or I'm speaking a message, I'm speaking to a very specific person. And that person is always going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's going to be picking up what you're putting down. I think that's very important. And I think we all have our own voice. And I believe that every podcaster or anyone who speaks or an orator, the reason they do it is because they have a message or a story to tell and they want people to hear their voice, their own individual and unique voice or message. And I think there's a lot of power in that. Get what I'm saying?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So you're also an author, man. You got a lot of stuff going on, man. I love it. I'm super inspired. Let's talk about how that even became a thing.
Yeah. So authorship landed on my lap, right? So there was, and let me tell you that if you want to start an initiative, start it. Don't wait. It's this Adriana Rosales. She started a Air Force vet, started a mission. Her mission was to get 1 million Latinos authored. She did it. She loved it. And she said, you know what? I could do something like this and I want 1 million in her lifetime, right? Her legacy. And so I got wind of this and I said, shoot, I want to be an author, but I can't pay for my own book right now. So she was doing a compilation, right? Several people come together and I joined. I said, hey, I got a story. I'll tell it. Not only did I get to tell it, my story was selected as best in the book. And I got an extra badge for that, right? Talk about cookies, right? Extra badge for that. And then from then on, it was like, oh, yeah, I could tell this thing. And I was thinking about legacy. So a lot of folks want to be remembered for some certain things, right? I want my future generations to be able to see who their ancestor was. And there are very seldom places or few places that you could do that. And a book is one of them. You could read your words for as long as they're making books. And it doesn't matter if it's your generation that you got in your house or 10 down the road. As long as they keep archives of something that was written, they can look you up and they can read your very own words. And so I started saying, well, if I want anything to be left as a legacy, it's my words. And that's what I've been doing. Now, book number 7, 8, and 9 are coming out here, and I get 2 coming out in June and 1 coming out in July, which is my own book.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so they'll be able to look me up and say, "Wow, let's talk about great grandpa so and so," and see what he was and inspire. I aim to inspire my ancestors, my descendants, for as long as they're able to read.
I love that. That's powerful. For me, I am a huge proponent for a legacy and building generational wealth. I don't believe that when we talk about generational wealth, that only pertains to currencies. I believe that it mostly pertains to knowledge
Mhm. Absolutely.
because people say that knowledge is power. I believe that's a half truth, my friend. You can know everything in the world, but what do you do with it? Are you just a receiver of information, or are you a reproducer of it?
Yeah, I've
Are you gonna
changed that.
say again?
Yeah, I've changed that since you mentioned that. I say the application of knowledge is power,
100%.
right? Yep.
100%. The application of it of what you get is the power is power, right? So that's why I say it's a half truth because
Mhm.
I'm like, hey, knowledge is by itself isn't power, it's the application of
Yeah.
it, which empowers as well.
Yep.
So and I think by passing down knowledge generationally, if that does include certain assets, you're empowering your descendants to know what to do with those assets to continue to build generational wealth and to keep everything going down the line and down the line and down the line. The word says that a good man will leave an inheritance for his
Mhm.
children's children. Firm believer of that.
Oh yeah.
Firm believer of that. So, yeah, man. So, how does it feel to know that your story is having an international impact?
It's good. Like I said, I'm happy that others get to read that, but I all I really care about is that my descendants read it. That my
I feel
descendants
that.
read it, because that's why I'm doing it. I share it so that they can be inspired and say, "Man, and my great 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 grandfather could have done it. What can I do?" Yeah. And if they feel a little humble because they're not up there, hey, I'm telling them through the book, get on it. Get
100%.
on it. Stop thinking about it. Get on it. And and that was my aim, and we get to share some good stories. Your life doesn't go off into the sunset as a whisper and never heard of again. Because let's face it, man, your name is gonna be it's gonna vanish. Your name is gonna vanish. As soon as you die, your family and your friends, they're gonna remember you, and it'll be 1, 2 generations, and then it'll start to fade out, right? And
Mm.
I'm ensuring that that never happens to me.
Yeah, because that mean that your legacy will be through impact 100%.
Mhm.
If you're impactful and you build a strong legacy, then it becomes a priority to keep your name alive, even past your physical death. I think a lot like when it comes to like people making ofrendas and stuff like that,
Mhm.
right? That's like the whole purpose of that is to honor their ancestors, but to also making sure that the next generation is educated on where they came from and who they came from. I think the act of that is powerful, right?
Mhm.
Because it's an act of servitude. It's serving your ancestors for sure and honoring them for the road that they paved essentially. So I think that's really cool. And I think one thing that I haven't seen a lot is people really diving deep when it comes to talking about their grandparents' story or their great grandparents. We're not, as this generation or the new generation is not very intentional about sitting down and having those conversations with them while they're still on this earth.
Yeah, it's I was blessed. I had my great grandfather, had long conversations with him. Had my grandfather, conversation with him. My great grandmother, my grandmother. I grew up with my great grandparents. They're having them and speaking to them in my home. I have the longest stretch of stairs. That wall has from my father and my mother all the way back to my great great grandparents, 18 something.
Wow.
Yeah. And they are on that wall. And my kids see it every time they go down and every time they go up. And it's family pictures of everybody that were from my mom and my dad's side and my siblings. And they get to see their lineage. It goes all the way from the top, is the great great folks, all the way down to my dad and my mom and in between. Right. And so I did that with the premise of we can't forget where we came from, number one, and the toil and the labor and the sacrifices that they had to make in order for those two individuals down there to get together
Yeah.
and produce this one.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of history, and you see, I got pictures of my grandfather in the cane fields in Puerto Rico. He's on
Wow.
a tractor trailer in Pennsylvania, right? All of that was work to get this family going. And so I want them to understand that it's not just us. It was them and all they did to get us to where we are today.
Yeah, that's heavy because I mean that hits me in a special place because I'm thinking about it. I can probably only name like one or two generations.
Mm.
When it gets to 3 and 4, I have no knowledge whatsoever. And the thing about it is like once somebody dies, what they know dies with them. So that's why it's
Exactly.
important to pass it on. You know, there's these really cool. I've seen an ad for 'em, these really cool books that are out that your loved ones can record their voice and tell their story while they're alive. That way you can just go to the picture and you can scan the code or QR code and you can always hear their voice.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really cool, man. And I think for me, my goal is for my great to know who their grandpa
Yeah.
Reggie was. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? They were like, man, he paved the way for us for sure.
Exactly.
So if you can recall, what would you say one of the greatest lessons that you have learned in life is?
That truth prevails around you, in you, and about you. Truth prevails. And and I've also learned that when you distort and try to hide the truth, it comes out. I've lived my life here in the last 10, 15 years around that, around truth. A leader, because I do leadership, and a leader that does not lead by truth leads by a lie.
Man, that's heavy. What's done in the dark will come to light.
Oh yeah, you can count on that.
Oh man, that's deep. I like that. Thank you for sharing that. That is deep. You know, leading in truth. Wow. I'm inspired today.
Yeah, good,
Um,
good.
so I do have one more question for you.
Yeah.
And I ask this question a lot, but I think it's such a powerful question. And it's fun for me too to hear the answer. So what might people be surprised to know about you?
There's a lot of things that people are surprised. And I'm an ordained minister. I pastored
Okay.
for 3 years.
Come on.
I'm an artist that I could draw. I'm a musician, avid gardener. They tell me I got a green thumb. I can grow anything, man.
Man, okay.
But it ain't me. I just plant it, right? The Lord makes it grow. And yeah, so those are typically the things that people don't see too much of that would probably surprise somebody. Some others might say, well, I ain't surprised, he does everything else.
You know what? That's powerful that what you just said. You know, said it ain't me. I think a lot of the times we think about like the seed that's being planted, but we don't really give a second thought to who the sower is, because I think that has a lot to do with the harvest and what the product is going to be and what the seeds are going to produce.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, thanks for sharing that, man. You know, I definitely really appreciate you coming out today. I am definitely inspired, man. You know, I definitely gonna want to pick your brain, stuff like that, for sure. But before I let you go, I have something for you.
All
We'll
right.
get it sent out to you. What I have, if it'll focus,
I see.
gotta, yeah. So what I got is a call to serve challenge coin. Okay.
Outstanding.
And on the back of it, it has our slogan that says, serving those who serve others. And what I would like for this to be is a reminder to you of not only why you serve, but why you chose to answer the call. Because you were called to serve 26 years in the military. Wow. Wow. And then everything else that you do for your community, for the world, sharing your perspective, sharing your innermost thoughts. That's someone that's called to serve on many different levels. So that's what I hope that this would be for you. On top of that,
Outstanding.
we'll also send you a sticker. You can put it anywhere you
On
want.
my laptop.
On your laptop. There you go. That could also be a reminder. You know what I'm saying? It's people like you who are the reason why I created this podcast. And I'm definitely grateful to have had the honor of meeting you. I definitely
Likewise.
am going to have you come back once those books are released so we can talk about it, maybe do a little book talk or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just chop it up on that level. Thank you so much for your time, brother.
Yeah, thank you, Reggie, for what you're doing to continue the effort on highlighting folks that serve. You served, and we thank you for that. I tell you, like I mentioned before, right? 14 ain't no walk in the park, man. People are looking at 10 are like, yo, it's either go now or stay, right? And so thank you for that.
I appreciate you. Until next time, brother.
All right.